All right, fourth grade. This is a continuation of lesson 6-8. I'm on page 211, and we're talking about growing patterns. So today is really just about pattern recognition. That means finding out what's happening from one figure to the next. So let's start right away with number one. If you take a look at our three figures, they want us to draw the next shape in the pattern. If you look, we start with one teeny triangle. And the first thing you want to do when you're looking at a pattern is just try to figure out broadly, even if you don't know the specifics, what's happening between one shape to the next. Are we gaining more shapes? Are we losing? And in number one, it's pretty easy to tell that we're gaining more triangles with each pattern shape. So we know we're either adding or we're multiplying something. It's something that's going to result in a larger number. So there's a couple of ways to tackle this. Some of you, I'll just throw a couple strategies out there. Some of you might notice that in each shape, the top is always just a little one triangle by himself. Okay, and you might even notice that after this first triangle, our one is still up top, and what's below? 1, 2, 3 triangles. And when we carry on to the next one, let me just do a 1, 1, 1, and then the second row is a 1, 2, 3. And if you look at our next pattern, what's the second row? 1, 2, 3. But now we have a new row. And how many triangles upside down and right side up? How many triangles do we have in that new row? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here's what I see. Our first row, very first shape, had one triangle, period. The next row, 3. The third row, 5. So what do you know about the relationship between 1, 3, and 5? Think about that for a moment. What do you know about 1, 3, and 5? And what I know is they're odd numbers. And not only that, but they're odd numbers in order. If I told you to count by odds starting from 1, you would go, okay, 1, 3, 5. Do you notice a pattern developing here? If the first one's 1, then we have 3, then we have 5. What do you think our next shape is going to look like? How many triangles do you think there's going to be? So far we've had a shape that had 1, then we added a row with 3, a row with 5. We're going to want to keep counting by the odd numbers. What comes after 5? 1, 3, 5. Next odd number is 7. So the next step here is going to be to find out how to make this thing. And to be honest, I haven't made this in a year, since last year. So I think my starting point, I'm going to start in the bottom left corner. I know every time the bottom left corner is a normal size and right side up triangle. So I'm going to do one triangle here. And do you remember how many we said were going to be in the bottom row? I said 1, 3, 5. This new bottom row should be 7, the next odd number. So here's the second triangle, upside down. Third triangle, then another upside down. 4, 5, 6, 7. And you'll notice what we're going to do with this bottom row, just like every single time we have a new shape, we just bump up one row. So the 1 here gets bumped up 1, gets bumped up 1, so he's going to be all the way up here. I'm going to go ahead and, if 5 was the bottom in the last row, now 5 is going to be 1 up. So we should have room for 1 triangle, 2, 3, 4, 5. It gets easier as you go up because you're dealing with a smaller number. 1, 2, 3, and then the easiest one is going to be the tip of the triangle. And we can check it out. We've got 1 right there. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So take a look. 1 triangle, 3, 5, 7. And I bet by now you could even make the next one if they wanted you to, which they don't, by just following this pattern. 1, 3, 5, 7. And of course the next one would be 9. Okay, so what I'm going to leave to you here is for you to use your words to describe the rule that we use to find this pattern. And by rule, they mean, what'd you do? How'd you know that this next one was 7? So I'm going to have you use your words to explain exactly what happened. And please do not just say, well, I figured out the pattern. That's not good enough. Tell me exactly what you did. What was that pattern? Now, let's take a look at number 2 real quick. We're dealing with extending another pattern. So it's going to be a little bit like our triangle, except we don't have a visual. We're just dealing with the numbers. So here's the numbers that we see. 1, 4, 9, 16, 25. And again, the first thing you want to do is figure out, are we going up or are we going down? And in this case, you guys can tell these numbers are going up. So this tells me that we're either talking about adding a number or maybe even multiplying. There may be some other situations we could work out here to figure out to make these numbers go up. But for now, let's think about addition or multiplication. And so I always like to start with addition when we're going up. So I like to figure out how far did we go up by first here. And I can tell between 1 and 4, I can do that in my head. There's a difference of 3. That means we went up 3 between 1 and 4. And you don't have to write the 3 down there, but I find it helpful to have a visual. So I put a plus 3 because we added 3. Now I'm going to figure out from 4 to 9, how many did we add? And again, I can just use my fingers if I need to. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we added 5 plus 5 to get from 4 to 9. I'm going to put little carets in so we know where they belong. So let's look between 9 and 16. How much do we have to add to get from 9 to 16? And I know going from 10 to 16 is going up 6. So 9 to 16 would be one more than that, which would be plus 7. And lastly, the last number they give us, by the way, I can already, if you look at these 3 that we have, you might see a pattern developing already. So from 16 to 25, I know going from 16 to 26 would be adding 10. So one less than that would be adding 9. That would get us to 25. So let's look and see how the addition has gone so far. First we added 3, then we added 5 to get from 4 to 9. Then we added 7 to get from 9 to 16. And we added 9 to get from 16 to 25. So take a look at these 4 sequences that we've done so far. Plus 3, plus 5, plus 7, plus 9. Another way, 3, 5, 7, 9. What do you think we're going to add for that next number? We have 3, 5, 7, 9. And you might notice something. It looks a lot like what we did in number 1, when we did 1, 3, 5, 7. These are all odd numbers. And they're odd numbers in order. Plus 3, plus 5, plus 7, plus 9. So my question to you is, what's the next odd number that we'll be adding? After 9, what's our next odd number? And if you said 11, then you nailed this thing. So from 25 to this next spot, we need to add 11. And again, I know 25 plus 10 is 35. So 25 plus 11 will just be one more, which would be 36. And I'm going to set you guys loose and see if you can figure out these last 2 categories. Okay, before I sign off here, closing in on 10 minutes, I wanted to talk to you about C for number 2, where it says examine the number pattern in 2A and write a rule involving multiplication to find these numbers. So we have a plot twist here. If you guys use this pattern, and this is the first one that jumped out to me, that's fine. For number 1, or excuse me, for 2A and for 2B, this works. What's really going to throw you for a loop is going back and seeing if you can find a pattern that fits using multiplication as well. So that means, is there anything that could be multiplied here to equal 1, and then a pattern for the next one to happen, and to get 9, to get 16, to get 25. And this comes down to, in a lot of ways, your knowledge of multiples. But I have to admit, guys, this is a tough one, so I'm going to really help you out here. So I'm trying to think how I can help you out without just giving it all to you, but maybe this will be my gift, because I found this to be the trickiest one on the page. Think in your head right now, what is 1 times 1? And you should probably be saying, it's easy. 1 times itself is 1. There's our first number. What if I asked you next, what's 2 times 2? 2 sets of 2 would be 4. And that gives us, wouldn't you know it, we have our first 2 numbers. So if 1 times 1 equals 1, 2 times 2 equals 2, what do you think is going to be next to equal 9? What do you think we could use next? Okay, so maybe what I'll do is I'll give you a jump start on that problem. So for 2C, here's the first start of the pattern. 1 times 1 equals 1. 2 times 2 equals 4. Blank times blank equals 9. Blah, 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 blah. Okay? I think that's as far as I'll take you. That was a longer lesson for growing patterns. But these can be tricky. So hopefully this was able to help you guys out a little bit. And I will see you for our next lesson.